Hospitals are meant to be safe. Every door was monitored, every patient accounted for, and yet, over decades, patients at the same psychiatric hospital simply walked past locked wards, past staff, and vanished without a trace. No calls, no sightings, no bodies, just names in records, and families still waiting for answers. Let's uncover 5 psychiatric patients who vanished without a trace. Story 1. On a hot August afternoon in northern Ontario, dinner was being served inside a locked psychiatric ward in North Bay. Patients gathered as they did every evening, except one chair remained empty. By nightfall, the hospital grounds were quiet, the nearby highway stretching endlessly north and south, and one woman had vanished into the fading summer light. Dawn, Eva Carisse, was a 43-year-old mother of 3 from Kirkland Lake, Ontario. She was known by family and staff as warm, friendly, and deeply devoted to her children. Before her illness, Dawn lived an active life and dreamed of building a stable future for her family. In 1991, Dawn suffered a sudden medical event that caused a traumatic brain injury, leaving her with severe short-term memory loss. She could forget everyday tasks within minutes, creating safety risks at home. In 1992, her family made the difficult decision to place her at the North Bay Psychiatric Hospital, believing it was the safest option. Despite her memory impairment, Dawn remained perceptive and determined. She frequently spoke about wanting to return north to Kirkland Lake to be with her children. Staff recalled her sense of humor and her repeated warning. She called herself Dawn, the running bear, saying that when she ran, no one would catch her. On Thursday afternoon of August 9th, 2001, Dawn was living on a locked ward under 24-hour supervision. At approximately 5 p.m., patients were expected to gather in a common room for dinner. When Dawn did not arrive, staff searched the ward, hospital grounds, and nearby areas. The search continued into the evening, but produced no results. It was not until the following morning, approximately 16 hours later, that the North Bay Police Service was notified and Dawn was officially reported missing. Dawn had previously left the hospital 9 times. In earlier incidents, she was found either walking on hospital property or hitchhiking along Highway 11, a major roadway leading toward Kirkland Lake and Sudbury. On this occasion, she was never located. Police conducted interviews with hospital staff, family members, and friends, and issued media alerts. 2 members of the public later reported possible sightings, but none were confirmed. Investigators confirmed that Dawn Carisse was last seen inside the North Bay Psychiatric Hospital on August 9, 2001, that she had a documented history of leaving the facility, and that police were not notified for approximately 16 hours. However, theories, never proven, suggest she may have been attempting to reach her children in Kirkland Lake or Sudbury, or became disoriented after leaving the hospital grounds. No physical evidence, personal belongings, or confirmed sightings have ever been recovered. For Dawn's children and family, the disappearance left an enduring absence. Vigils were held, posters distributed, and searches organized by both professionals and volunteers. Over the years, her case became one of 6 unresolved disappearances connected to the same psychiatric hospital. Her daughter has spoken publicly about the pain of not knowing what happened and the hope that answers might still exist. Independent investigators and advocates have continued reviewing the case, generating new tips, though none have led to confirmed results. Dawn was declared legally dead years later, but for her family, the uncertainty remains. What if the delay in reporting her disappearance changed the outcome? What if Dawn reached someone who never realized she was missing? Story 2. Snow drifted across the empty roads outside North Bay as night settled over northern Ontario. The wind howled through trees and open fields, carrying freezing air toward the highway. Near the edge of the former North Bay Psychiatric Hospital, a man stepped away from the grounds and into the darkness, leaving behind warmth, shelter, and every certainty of safety. Russell Hoffert was 34 years old at the time of his disappearance. Born in 1965, he was described as having brown hair and brown eyes, standing approximately 5 feet 7 inches tall, and weighing around 183 pounds. He had a scar on his abdomen. Beyond these basic physical details, little is publicly known about Russell's upbringing, family life, or personal relationships. At the time he went missing, Russell was a voluntary patient at the North Bay Psychiatric Hospital, located along Highway 11 North in North Bay, Ontario. Authorities have never disclosed why Russell sought treatment, and it remains unknown whether he had been diagnosed with a mental illness. Because his admission was voluntary, Russell was legally free to leave the facility. The lack of information surrounding Russell's personal circumstances has left investigators and the public with only fragments of his story, making his disappearance especially difficult to piece together. On Friday, April 7, 2000, shortly after 10 p.m., hospital staff reported Russell Hoffert missing after he walked away from the hospital grounds. He was last seen heading toward Beaumark Road, an area near Highway 11, bordered by wooded terrain, gravel pits, and open fields. That night, weather conditions were severe. Snow was falling steadily, temperatures were around -10 degrees Celsius, and wind chills dropped to approximately -20 degrees. Despite the conditions, Russell was not dressed for winter weather. He was wearing a blue long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, and running shoes. Police received multiple calls from members of the public reporting a man walking along the roadway in inadequate clothing. When officers arrived in the area, they searched using patrol vehicles, lights, horns, and sirens in an attempt to locate him. Russell was not found. A large-scale search effort began immediately and continued over the next 3 days. Patrol and emergency response team officers from the North Bay Police Service were joined by the Ontario Provincial Police, who deployed K-9 units and a helicopter. The Anishinaabe Police assisted with 4-wheelers to search difficult terrain, including wooded areas, a nearby gravel pit, and surrounding land. Footprints were discovered in the snow near the gravel pit, but they did not lead to Russell or provide a clear direction of travel. Area residents were canvassed, but no confirmed sightings were obtained. Investigators confirmed that Russell voluntarily left the hospital during extreme winter conditions and was last seen near Beaumark Road. However, unproven theories suggest he may have succumbed to environmental exposure, become disoriented in the storm, or wandered into terrain that concealed him from search efforts. There is no evidence of foul play, and no physical evidence has ever been recovered. Little information has been publicly released about Russell's family or close relationships, but the impact of his disappearance is reflected in the fact that his case remains open more than 2 decades later. The absence of answers has left his fate unresolved, with no confirmation of what happened after he walked into the storm. Russell Hoffert is one of several patients who disappeared from the North Bay Psychiatric Hospital over several decades. His case continues to raise quiet but unsettling questions about vulnerability, supervision, and how easily someone can vanish under harsh conditions. What if Russell had crossed paths with someone moments before the storm worsened? What if the snow erased the only clues that could have led searchers to him? Story 3. On a quiet summer morning in northern Ontario, the grounds of a psychiatric hospital appeared calm and unchanged. Patients moved through familiar routines, and staff carried on with their duties. But somewhere between the hospital buildings and the nearby highway, an 18-year-old young man walked away and was never seen again. Terry Zubko was born on June 4, 1964, in Blind River, Ontario, a small community along the North Channel of Lake Huron. At the time of his disappearance, he was 18 years old and living with his parents in Sault Ste. Marie. His family described him as gentle, curious, and deeply connected to the outdoors. Terry loved animals and sports and enjoyed simple hobbies such as biking, fishing, water skiing, collecting stamps, and building forts. The family maintained a cottage in Blind River, where Terry often helped with landscaping and outdoor chores. He was known to enjoy routine, structure, and spending time with family. In May 1982, Terry was admitted to the North Bay Psychiatric Hospital on Highway 11 North. The exact reason for his admission has never been publicly disclosed. However, multiple sources indicate he suffered from amnesia and required medication. According to his sister, Terry was extremely afraid of hospitals, and staff were warned that he might attempt to leave if given the opportunity. On July 21, 1982, at approximately 10 a.m., Terry was granted limited privileges to walk around the hospital grounds unsupervised for 1 hour. This was a rare allowance. When Terry left the ward, he was wearing blue jeans, a brown and beige V-neck striped sweater, a blue t-shirt, and blue and white running shoes. He did not return at the end of the hour. Hospital staff immediately searched the hospital grounds and nearby sections of Highway 11. When these efforts were unsuccessful, Terry was reported missing to the police later that afternoon. Officers searched the hospital buildings, the surrounding bush, and the perimeter of the property, but found no sign of him. At the time, Terry's family was staying at their cottage in Blind River. Due to communication delays, several days passed before full contact was established between the hospital and his family. Police continued to investigate Terry's disappearance in the days and weeks that followed. Tips from the public reported possible sightings of a young man matching Terry's description in North Bay and surrounding areas. None of these sightings was confirmed. Confirmed facts indicate Terry voluntarily left the hospital grounds during an unsupervised walk and was never seen again. There is no evidence of foul play. Unproven theories suggest Terry may have become disoriented, attempted to travel on foot, or encountered environmental dangers after leaving the property. No physical evidence has ever been recovered to support or dismiss these possibilities. For decades, Terry's family has lived with unanswered questions. They have traveled thousands of miles across Canada, searching highways, ditches, culverts, and remote areas in hopes of finding any trace of him. They have placed advertisements, followed leads, and submitted DNA. In 2016, North Bay Police held a media conference marking the 34th anniversary of Terry's disappearance. His mother, Audrey Zubko, his sister, Alana Costin, and his niece, Sarah Foreman, publicly appealed for information. "I want my brother found and brought home," his sister said. Despite their efforts, Terry Zubko has never been located. His case remains open. What if Terry left believing he could find his way back home? What if someone saw him but never realized he was missing? Story 4. On a summer day in northern Ontario, a man walked out of a psychiatric hospital and quietly disappeared. There were no alarms, no witnesses, and no immediate search. By the time authorities realized he was gone, the trail had already begun to fade, leaving behind one of North Bay's longest-lasting unanswered questions. Philippe Guérin was born in the late 1930s and grew up in Ontario as part of a large, close-knit family. At the age of 10, Philippe contracted polio, which left him partially paralyzed on one side of his body and caused him to walk with a noticeable limp. He also lost his upper teeth, a detail that later became a key identifying feature. Despite his physical disability, Philippe was described by family members as quirky, gentle, and fun-loving. He longed to live a life similar to his siblings and often expressed simple hopes: having a girlfriend, a job, and independence. Family members recalled moments when Philippe would quietly compare himself to his brothers, wishing he could achieve the same milestones. At the time of his disappearance, Philippe was 27 years old and a patient at the Ontario Hospital, a psychiatric facility located in the north end of North Bay on Highway 11. The hospital has since been demolished. Records indicate he had been admitted after becoming aggressive toward his parents, though the full details of his diagnosis have never been publicly disclosed. On June 12, 1966, Philippe walked away from the Ontario Hospital and was never seen again. Hospital staff later indicated that Philippe left suddenly, stating he intended to find employment. Crucially, hospital authorities did not immediately notify police by phone. Instead, a letter was sent to the Whitfield Police Department, which was responsible for the area at the time. Some accounts suggest the letter was misfiled upon receipt, delaying any meaningful response. Philippe's parents were not informed of his disappearance. They only learned he was missing when family members arrived at the hospital days later to visit him and discovered he was gone. Staff initially told them Philippe had gone home for the weekend, a claim the family disputed. Once notified, Whitfield police opened an investigation. The only significant lead came from a North Bay clergyman who reported picking up a hitchhiker matching Philippe's description near Falcon Bridge in the Sudbury area. The hitchhiker reportedly said he was heading towards Sacré-Cœur, Quebec, and was dropped off at the junction of Highways 11 and 17, south of North Bay. Police were unable to locate Philippe following this lead. Confirmed facts show that Philippe voluntarily left the hospital and was last reported hitchhiking shortly afterward. No physical evidence has ever been recovered. Unproven theories include the possibility that Philippe attempted to travel long distances despite his disability, became lost or injured, or encountered environmental dangers. There is no evidence of foul play. Philippe's disappearance deeply affected his family, particularly his parents, who passed away without ever learning what happened to their son. Decades later, his surviving siblings continue to seek answers. On the 50th anniversary of Philippe's disappearance in 2016, North Bay Police held a media conference renewing public interest in the case. Family members spoke publicly, emphasizing the lifelong impact of not knowing. "It was hard for them to die and not know what happened to their son," said Philippe's sister-in-law, Dora Guérin. "There was never a closure." What if the delay in reporting allowed Philippe to travel farther than anyone realized? What if someone encountered him but never knew he was missing? Story 5. In the summer of 1976, a man on vacation in northern Ontario vanished within hours of arriving at a psychiatric hospital. He did not leave a note, pack his belongings, or make arrangements to return home. Instead, he ran toward a wooded area and disappeared, leaving behind unanswered questions that remain unresolved. Nearly 5 decades later, Norman Richard Welsh was born and raised in St. Catharines, Ontario. At the time of his disappearance, he was 31 years old and living with his mother. Family members described him as independent, though he lived with a serious medical condition that required consistent care. Norman had epilepsy and depended on daily medication to manage seizures. Without it, he was known to experience episodes that could leave him confused and physically vulnerable, and he often struggled to recover on his own. down after a seizure. He also had a surgical scar on his head from an operation he underwent at age 16. In July 1976, Norman and his mother traveled to the North Bay area for a vacation, staying near Sturgeon Falls. There is no indication that he intended to seek psychiatric treatment prior to the trip. On July 18, 1976, Ontario Provincial Police located Norman walking along a highway near Sturgeon Falls. Concerned for his safety, officers brought him to a local hospital for assessment. From there, he was transferred to the former North Bay Psychiatric Hospital on Highway 11 North for further evaluation. Hospital records indicate that Norman was upset upon admission. Staff described him as bitter and uncooperative, repeatedly demanding to be released and insisting he wanted to return home to St. Catharines. Plans were reportedly being considered to transfer him closer to home, but those arrangements were never completed. On the morning of July 19, 1976, just one day into his stay, Norman was escorted outside between hospital buildings by nursing staff. During that walk, he suddenly broke away and ran eastbound toward a wooded area on the hospital grounds. He was last seen entering the bush. At the time, Norman was wearing dark blue and gray checkered pants, a black and white checkered shirt, and slippers. It is believed he had approximately $14 in his possession. Immediately after Norman failed to return, hospital staff and North Bay police conducted searches of the hospital grounds and surrounding areas. Despite these efforts, no trace of him was found. Confirmed facts show that Norman ran into a wooded area while under escort and was never seen again. No physical evidence or confirmed sightings have been recovered since that day. Unproven theories include the possibility that Norman became lost in the surrounding forest, suffered a medical emergency related to his epilepsy, or succumbed to environmental exposure. There is no evidence to suggest foul play or voluntary disappearance. Investigators have noted that Norman's reliance on seizure medication significantly increased his vulnerability once he left the hospital environment. Norman's disappearance deeply affected his family, particularly his mother, who had been traveling with him at the time. Over the years, the family has continued to cooperate with police and provide information in hopes of finding answers. Norman's case remains one of several long-term cold cases investigated by the North Bay Police Service. Detectives have acknowledged that the passage of time has made progress difficult, with only a small number of tips received over the decades. Today, Norman Welsh would be in his early 70s. His case file remains open. What if Norman's medical condition prevented him from seeking help after leaving the hospital grounds? What if someone encountered him but never realized he was missing? These stories are not about diagnoses or records. They are about people who mattered, whose lives did not simply stop when the searches ended. Time may pass, buildings may disappear, but unanswered questions remain. And as long as those questions exist, so does the responsibility to remember. This is Vanished Stories, where the missing are never forgotten.